On Gaza claimed the lives of more than 2,000 Palestinians and nearly 70 Israelis. New testimony from ex-soldiers has reopened old wounds. Joining us now from San Francisco to discuss the revelations is Avner Gvaryahu, a former IDF soldier and a member of the Israeli human rights organization Breaking the Silence. Also with me in the studio is Laila El-Haddad. She is a Palestinian activist and journalist. Thanks to both of you for joining us. Avner, let me start with you. What do you hope to achieve with Breaking the Silence?
Well, Breaking the Silence is an organization that's been around for over 11 years now. We're all former Israeli soldiers. We all served in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. And what we try to do is pretty simple. We try to let people know what the military occupation over the West Bank and Gaza looks like. And I think in the most simplest words, we want to pick up a mirror, first and foremost to the Israeli society, but to anyone who is interested to know what this prolonged military occupation looks like.
Laila, you've reported from Gaza. You know this conflict. What did you make of the testimonies that are contained in Breaking the Silence?
They're obviously, for Palestinians, they're not necessarily anything revolutionary, but they're absolutely vital and critical. I think just as an organization, it's important to have Breaking the Silence there. It's important for them to be able to speak to Israeli society and to others who support what the Israeli military occupation is doing.
Avner, there was one operation which I saw, which is referred to as straw widows. What is that?
So, the Israeli occupation has been going on for almost 50 years. This isn't a new reality, but a reality that is sort of entrenching itself more and more. And part of the thing that the Israeli soldiers have to do, and this is a mission, this is an order that keeps coming up over and over again. I myself served as a paratrooper and heard this mission, this order many times, is to make our presence felt. And part of the ways that we make our presence felt is by taking over homes. And this mission, which is called a straw widow, is basically entering a Palestinian home, usually in the middle of the night, and using that house as a military post. This could be in order to have an observation point, in order to have a sniper's point. I myself took part in many of these kinds of missions throughout the West Bank, mostly around Nablus and Jenin, but this is a pretty routine method which the IDF is using. I would just add that it's always important when you choose a house, besides making sure that it has big windows and sufficient areas to look out into, you have to make sure the people in the house are innocent. If they're innocent, you will enter the house, because you don't want to risk the troops by entering someone's house that could be maybe involved or maybe part of a terrorist organization. So we're basically barging into innocent people's homes in the middle of the night, and this is, generally speaking, what a straw widow is.
Laila, when we look at the kind of testimony that we see in a group like Breaking the Silence, you've testified to the Goldstone Commission, which was a commission that was investigating a previous war in Gaza. That inquiry found that Israeli soldiers had indiscriminately targeted civilians in that war. But the findings of that commission were later retracted. Now we have criticism from the IDF on what Breaking the Silence is doing as well. So, are there any consequences to seeing this testimony out there?
I mean, I'm sure there are consequences for the people who are brave enough to come forward and give their testimonies. And especially at a time, I think, when the environment within Israel is just so caustic. So it's absolutely critical that we have voices like this revealing the truth of what's happening when generally the environment is one, and I'm sure Avner can speak more about this, what they call lethal, or there's a code of lethal ambiguity within the IOF, in the sense that they're not always giving clear orders. It's yes, you can shoot to kill if you want, but not, maybe fire a warning shot, maybe not. And so there's this also a code where you're not supposed to speak out about what's happening, and that's where I think their role is so critical. So, I'm sure they might face consequences, and we see this in the responses and the pressure from the Israeli government itself and the attempts to force them to retract their statements and so forth, and delegitimize them and make what they're doing seem absolutely irrelevant when it's absolutely not. They wouldn't be targeted, I think, if what they were doing wasn't important.
Right, and speaking of that response from the Israeli government, the Israeli Defense Force Avner has responded to breaking the silence. Breaking the silence repeatedly refused to provide the relevant IDF authorities with any proof of their claims. The report and its contents remain unsubstantiated, unverified, and unnamed. For obvious reasons, such conduct makes any investigation by relevant IDF bodies impossible and does not allow for the claims and incidents brought up to be dealt with. Breaking the silence seeks to generate negative publicity regarding the IDF and its soldiers. The IDF has in the past and continues to call upon the organization to immediately convey complaints or suspicions of improper conduct to the relevant authorities. In line with the IDF's ethical commitments, any such incidents will be thoroughly investigated. So, Avner, listening to that, what is your response?
Well, first of all, it's important to say that we, as Breaking the Silence, did not turn to any international committee. We did not meet with the Goldstone Report, and we did not meet with current committees. What we are calling for, and this is what we have always called for, is an internal Israeli investigation, which is external from the military, because I think the military has proven over and over again that it cannot and will not investigate itself in a proper manner. And I think this is exactly sort of our response to the military. The military is not the problem. The military is not the issue. The Israeli government, which was chosen by the Israeli people, is basically asking the military to do something impossible. We do not have a political solution in the near future, and what the military has to do is maintain the current situation, or like high-ranking Israeli generals refer to the operations in Gaza as mowing the lawn. We're going to have to go in every couple of years and mow the lawn. The military's response, and this has always been their response, they want to have scapegoats. They want to find specific rotten apples and pull them out and say, this is the problem. And we're not willing to go there because we have met the soldiers, and we were soldiers ourselves, and we understand the problem is not with one or two specific individual cases, but actually with a method, actually with a system that says we're going to maintain the occupation over the Palestinians, and this is how we're going to fight our wars in Gaza. Massive artillery shelling, rules of engagement that are very, very flexible, many times no rules of engagement. The Air Force, which is bombarding in areas which are populated with a lot of flexibility. And these are things that we want to put on the table and open up for debate, and sadly, the IDF is trying to silence it. And this is why we do not turn to the IDF, but actually turn first and foremost to the Israeli public, but anyone who's interested in our region, to say we need to keep this on the table. We have to make sure that we're not going to have another round in a year or two that will be worse than this one.
And Laila, this is very personal for you, isn't it? You lost 9 members of your family during Operation Protective Edge, as it was called. So is there anything in these confessions, anything in these testimonies that shocks you?
You know, I think it's, more than anything, it's validating, because we as Palestinians, and you know, while I myself wasn't there, as you mentioned, I suffered personal losses, and so many other people did. I think there wasn't a single family who didn't. And we heard about all of these things that Avner was talking about, whether it's raiding the homes or targeting individuals who were innocent. And I know Defense for Children International talked about how in several of the cases, children were deliberately targeted. But it sounds like we're just, you know, the victims just kind of crying foul again, and nothing that we say as Palestinians, and I noticed this trend too as a Palestinian journalist, is ever really taken at face value. You know, it has to be some kind of outsider that legitimizes what you're saying. And so to have an organization like Breaking the Silence say, no, actually, we participated, or we know others who did, and here are their testimonies, and it's true, we did engage in this sort of thing, is very validating for us.
Right, and Avner, while the Israeli government, you know, on the one hand says that this is a smear campaign, on the other hand, they are also saying to Breaking the Silence, bring us the proof, show us the proof.
So first of all, it's important to say, I'm an Israeli, and I'm a proud Israeli. I am embarrassed with the actions of my government many times, but I'm a proud Israeli, and I think that what we are doing is probably the most patriotic act an Israeli could do. And when I'm speaking out, I'm doing this for the good of my country, and this is just important for me to put on the table. Now, I think that the IDF's response of giving us proof, it's important to sort of look back at this. We've been around, like I said, for over 11 years. Part of our testimonies, not on this Gaza report, but throughout these 10 years, are videos, video testimonies. My video testimony is actually on our website, and anyone around the world can click and watch my video. My face is there, my rank is there. Alongside with me, there's dozens and dozens of soldiers that have given testimonies like this. And we've actually turned publicly to the military and say, here we are, why don't you do something with this? But the truth of the matter is the military does not really want to take all of these stories. They want to find specific incidences so eventually they can sweep them under the rug. We have always said that the story is not finding a specific case, but actually talking about the system. There have been many stories outside of Breaking the Silence that have been published, not by us, that clarify this. And I think that if the military would have taken itself seriously in its investigation, they don't need us to rely on. We're a pretty small organization. We've been working for a pretty long time getting this information out there, but the military has many people that could have done this job if they would like. There's hundreds of people in the military and definitely in the bodies that are relevant, and they could on their own check these cases. This whole idea of evidence, we're not a legal body. We're a body of former soldiers that wants to create public debate. We're not a group of lawyers. We're not a group of judges. We want to create public debate. And if the military wants to get to the bottom of this, then they should actually stand by us. They should actually support our call and say, we actually need this this Israeli investigation that's external from the military in order to really get to the bottom, not of a specific incident, but of this entire method that sadly we're afraid is going to reoccur in the next year or two.
Laila, given the level of opposition from the Israeli Defense Forces to organizations like Breaking the Silence, other investigations, do you think there would ever be an independent investigation, some kind of judicial outcome, whether it be military or civilian?
You mean specifically related to Breaking the Silence, or just generally?
Into Operation Protective Edge, for instance.
Right, about that. I think, there may, and there have been attempts in the past, but in the end of the day, none of them really matter, I think, because you have the United States vetoing any Security Council resolution that comes up, and generally speaking, dismissing any sort of neutral investigation that might happen. And so I don't know how effective they are. Again, reports like that in investigations are certainly validating to Palestinians, and I think they are important in terms of helping them cope. But in the end, they won't have any real impact. I think the only thing that will change the situation on the ground, as Avner was saying, is to address the underlying root of the problem, which is ending Israel's longstanding military occupation and settler colonialism. Because in the end, these continuous attacks against Gaza aren't about rockets or tunnels or specific instances, right? They're about controlling Palestinian lives and land.
Laila El-Haddad, Avner Gvaryahu, thanks to both of you for joining us. We are going to take a break right now. Next, Israel questions the accuracy of anonymous testimony. Stay with us, you're watching The Heat.